The Endeavour drifted silently through the dark expanse of the Orion Expanse, its hull reflecting distant starlight like a silver shard. Captain Lena Hart stood at the observation deck, her eyes scanning the inky void, her mind racing with questions she had asked herself hundreds of times during this mission. Humanity had spent centuries pushing the boundaries of space, but the expanse was still largely unexplored. Ancient asteroid fields, derelict satellites, and faint energy readings dotted the region, remnants of civilizations long gone, or perhaps civilizations that had simply vanished. The crew of the Endeavour had one purpose: exploration. And today, the sensors had picked up something that did not belong. The anomaly appeared as a faint blip at first, buried under layers of rock and ice. Dr. Malik Ray, the chief scientist, leaned over his console, his fingers dancing across holographic controls. "Captain," he said, voice tight with excitement, "this isn't a natural formation. The mass, the structure, even the energy readings, it's artificial. It's a vessel, and it's huge." Lena's eyes narrowed. She had seen many strange things in her career, but nothing like this. The vessel's outline was unlike anything in human databases. No known species had created a design with these sweeping curves, seamless walls, and integrated technology that seemed to defy current understanding. "How long has it been here?" she asked. "Impossible to say," Malik replied. "The readings suggest millennia. It's ancient, but it's still alive in some way. There's residual energy, low-level systems operating. Something moved inside when the sensors scanned it." A chill ran down Lena's spine. The crew gathered around, their usual chatter replaced by quiet tension. They were explorers, yes, but human imagination was always haunted by cautionary tales. Stories of crews venturing into abandoned vessels and never returning. Lena reminded herself that fear was a tool, not a weakness. She turned to the team. "Prepare the landing crew. We are going in. Carefully, and document everything." The shuttle detached from the Endeavour, cutting through the icy debris with precise thruster burns. Lena piloted it herself, the shuttle's lights casting shadows across jagged rock formations. As they approached, the vessel's enormity became clearer. It was larger than any human battleship, almost like a floating city frozen in space. Its surface was smooth, yet scarred with cracks, faint blue light pulsing along the hull in a rhythm that seemed almost like a heartbeat. The shuttle landed on a flat area near what appeared to be an entrance. The crew suited up, checking airlocks, tools, and scanning devices. Every step toward the vessel felt like stepping into the unknown. Lena led the team, her boots echoing on the frozen ground. When they reached the main entry, a massive door etched with unknown symbols dominated the hull. The symbols glowed faintly as their proximity sensors detected life inside the vessel. Malik's hands trembled slightly as he activated the scanning module. "Captain, the readings are unusual. There's a mass inside, preserved somehow. It's alive. Dormant, but alive." Lena swallowed, trying to suppress the sudden tightness in her chest. She had hoped for scientific curiosity, not the sensation that something was watching them. Yet the data was undeniable. Something within the vessel had survived untold centuries, untouched by decay or the vacuum of space. She activated the entry sequence. The massive door groaned, moving with deliberate slowness. Inside, the air was thin, recycled, and surprisingly breathable. The corridor extended ahead, walls sleek, metallic, with a subtle vibration beneath their feet, as though the ship itself were responding to their presence. Lights flickered on automatically as if sensing them, revealing alien architecture both elegant and intimidating. The crew moved cautiously, scanning every surface, every hallway. The vessel had corridors that curved in impossible angles, hallways that seemed longer from one end than physics would allow. Panels on the walls displayed faint symbols that shifted and reformed, as if alive, reacting to the crew's proximity. Lena couldn't shake the feeling that the vessel was studying them as much as they were studying it. In a chamber slightly larger than a human classroom, they found rows of stasis pods. Each pod was empty, yet they showed signs of advanced technology designed for preservation. Liquid-filled interiors, complex monitoring systems, and energy signatures that suggested life support long beyond human capability. Lena approached one of the pods, and Malik began running detailed scans. "Captain," he said, voice low. "One of the pods just moved. Slightly, almost imperceptibly, but it moved. There is something in there." A hush fell over the crew. They had expected emptiness, silence, the eerie stillness of the ancient. Instead, they were confronted with life. Lena gestured for everyone to stay calm. "No sudden movements. We observe, we record, and we try to understand. That's it. Everyone stay sharp." Malik activated the pod interface. The glass-like surface rippled, almost like water, and revealed a being inside. It was faintly luminescent, its form fluid, without distinct human features, yet undeniably alive. Its body pulsed slowly, synchronized with the rhythm of the vessel itself. Lena felt an odd sensation, as though the being's awareness brushed against her own mind. It was curious, but not hostile. The crew froze. They had expected a discovery of technology, artifacts, or empty vessels, not a sentient being that seemed aware of their presence. Malik tried to communicate, projecting signals, lights, and patterns. The being responded, subtly changing its form, shifting colors and emitting faint pulses. The vessel hummed louder, the corridors vibrating as if encouraging interaction or warning them to stop. "Captain," Malik whispered, "I think it's linked to the ship. Whatever this is, it's not just alive. It's part of the vessel. The ship itself is a host, or maybe even a container for this intelligence." Lena considered this, the weight of responsibility pressing on her shoulders. If this being was as ancient and intelligent as it seemed, their actions could be catastrophic. She ordered the crew to maintain distance and continue documenting everything. Every measurement, every scan, every observation was recorded. But they moved slowly, cautiously, as though each step could awaken something beyond comprehension. Hours passed. The crew explored further chambers, discovering remnants of alien life, tools, and consoles that displayed images from a past they could barely interpret. They saw entire civilizations in holographic fragments, cities, machines, and beings interacting in ways humanity had never imagined. And always, the stasis pod with the luminescent being remained at the center, watching, pulsing in quiet synchronization with the vessel. Malik spent long hours analyzing the pod's systems. "Captain," he said finally, "these pods were designed to preserve life indefinitely. And yet this one is different. It's adaptive, responsive. It's alive in a way we don't fully understand. It survived because the ship survived, and now that we're here, it is waking up." The realization sent a shiver through the team. Humanity had found something beyond technology, beyond comprehension. It was a life form older than most civilizations, integrated with a machine older than the stars around them. They were not intruders in a forgotten vessel. They were witnesses to something eternal. That night, as the crew rested in makeshift quarters within the ship, Lena could not sleep. She returned to the stasis pod, standing silently in the dim light. The being inside pulsed softly, its form rippling, and she could feel its awareness brush against her mind again. It was curious, almost playful, but there was also a weight, an expectation. She wondered what it had seen over millennia, what civilizations it had known, and what it might want from humanity. The ship vibrated gently, as though acknowledging her presence. Lena realized that the Endeavor was no longer simply a vessel. It was part of something far greater. It had survived millennia waiting for someone, or something, to arrive, and humanity had answered that call. As she returned to her quarters, she left the pod behind, unaware that its subtle movements were increasing. The being was awakening slowly, drawing energy from the ship itself. The corridors seemed to shift more rapidly now, as if the vessel was aligning itself to new patterns, new awareness. By morning, the crew noticed that the lights pulsed in rhythm with the stasis pod. Gravity seemed to fluctuate slightly, and the air carried a faint hum that resonated in their bones. Every scanner confirmed the same thing. The vessel was alive. Not just alive, but aware. And humanity was now part of its story. Lena stood once more at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. She felt both awe and unease. They had discovered an ancient vessel, and inside, something still moved. The question that weighed on her mind was not whether they could explore it. It was whether they understood what they had awakened, and whether humanity was ready to face what lay ahead. The ancient ship had waited millennia for this moment, and now humanity had arrived. The vessel seemed to breathe around them. Every corridor pulsed with a faint blue light, every wall hummed, and the subtle vibrations under their feet now felt like a heartbeat, steady and insistent. Lena Hart walked carefully through the main hallway, her boots making soft thuds against the smooth metal. The crew followed closely, scanning every surface, every panel, and every corner. They were no longer just explorers, they were witnesses to something alive, something far older and far more advanced than they could comprehend. The stasis pod, still at the center of the largest chamber, pulsed brighter than it had the previous day. Malik Ray approached slowly, his hand hovering over the interface, which reacted instantly to his presence. The translucent form inside the pod shifted slightly, moving fluidly as if sensing the attention. The being's movements were deliberate, and yet they were unlike anything human had ever seen. More like ripples of energy than physical motion. It was aware, and it had been waiting for someone to notice. "Captain," Malik whispered, his voice tinged with both fear and awe. "It's responding to us. I think it knows we are here. I can feel it, almost like it's trying to communicate." Lena nodded, her eyes fixed on the being. She could feel something, too, an almost imperceptible brush against her mind, like the faintest wind through an open window. It was not words, but a sense, a presence, something ancient and patient. "We proceed slowly," she said. "We observe. We try to understand. Nothing else. No sudden movements." Malik activated the ship's translation and interface systems, sending a sequence of pulses and lights to the pod. The being's body shimmered, its translucent form rippling in response. For the first time, it seemed to change shape, elongating slightly, then contracting, forming patterns that resembled basic geometry, lines, circles, triangles, all shifting in ways that suggested intelligence. The crew held their breath. It was clear this was not just life preserved in stasis, it was consciousness, waiting, aware, and connected to the ship itself. Lena's mind raced. Could this being have survived alone for thousands of years? Could it remember its creators? And what exactly did it want from them now that it had been discovered? Hours passed in careful observation. Malik noted every change, every ripple, every subtle shift in the being's form. He theorized that the vessel itself might be an extension of the being, or perhaps the being was an extension of the vessel, a symbiotic relationship spanning millennia. "Captain," he said finally, "I believe it is not just alive. It is integrated with the ship. The entire vessel is part of its body or consciousness. Every system, every panel, every energy reading, it's all connected to it." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. This meant that every corridor, every door, every light and hum was not just machinery, It was part of a living entity. They were not exploring a ship. They were exploring a mind. Suddenly, the lights along the hallway flickered and dimmed, then brightened again. The subtle vibrations grew stronger, almost rhythmic, like a pulse they could feel in their bones. The stasis pod's occupant shifted, stretching out slightly, its form flowing like liquid glass. Lena felt the pressure of its awareness more strongly, like a current brushing against her consciousness. She blinked, suddenly dizzy from the sensation. "Are you all right, Captain?" Malik asked, noticing her pale expression. "Yes," she said, steadying herself. "It's stronger than I expected, like it knows we are thinking about it." Malik nodded. "We have to be careful. Any aggressive movement, any sudden action, it could respond. We don't know its full capabilities yet." For the next several days, the crew focused on interaction rather than exploration. They devised subtle ways to communicate, patterns of light, vibrations, and gentle pulses of energy. Slowly, the being began to respond more clearly. Its form shifted to mimic simple shapes they created, then more complex patterns, almost as if it was learning their methods of communication. Lena watched as her crew discovered the first signs of understanding, the first fragile bridge between humanity and this ancient consciousness. One night, Lena returned to the stasis chamber alone, unable to sleep. The vessel's hum was louder now, a constant resonating pulse that seemed to thrum through her chest. The being shifted gently in its pod, its form spreading and contracting like a slow tide. Lena reached out, not physically, but with her mind, as much as she could. She did not speak aloud. She did not move too fast. She simply focused, opening herself to the presence that had waited millennia for discovery. A wave of thought brushed against her consciousness, not words, but images, feelings, fragments of memory. Cities of crystal, towers reaching into the clouds of alien skies, beings of light and energy interacting with machines that moved like living creatures. A civilization that had transcended mortality, its people seeking understanding of the cosmos, its knowledge vast beyond comprehension. Lena could feel a sense of patience, a sense of waiting. The being had preserved its creator's history, its own life, and its vessel across the ages, and now humanity had arrived. The next morning, Malik and Lena presented their findings to the crew. "It is showing us visions," Malik explained. "Not through our eyes, but through our minds. History, technology, culture, things we cannot yet describe. It is a historian, a preserver of knowledge. It has waited for someone to awaken it, and it seems to have chosen us." The crew was awed, but also cautious. Humanity had found intelligence far older than their own civilization, integrated with technology far beyond their comprehension. They moved through the corridors carefully, knowing that every action could provoke a response. Yet each day they learned more. The being responded to their curiosity, to their questions, and sometimes even anticipated them, guiding them through parts of the vessel that seemed dangerous, warning them of sudden shifts in gravity, unstable panels, and hidden mechanisms. Lena felt a bond forming, not of friendship, but of understanding. The being was not hostile, it did not attack, yet it was aware of every motion, every thought, and every impulse. It challenged them without aggression, guiding them, testing them, teaching them the value of patience, observation, and respect. Humanity's ingenuity, adaptability, and curiosity were being measured quietly by a consciousness that had survived eons. One afternoon, as the crew explored a chamber filled with crystalline structures, the being reacted in a new way. Its body rippled and stretched, sending pulses of light that moved across the room, interacting with the crystals. The room glowed with colors no human had names for, refracting light in patterns that conveyed emotion, intelligence, and awareness. Lena and Malik stood in awe. The being was not only alive, it was creative. It could manipulate its environment, communicate through beauty and light, and guide their understanding through experiences rather than language. "We are witnessing art as communication," Malik said, his voice trembling. "This is beyond anything we have encountered. It is teaching us without words, without force." Lena nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Humanity had found a teacher older than the stars, a being whose existence spanned millennia. Every lesson they received was a fragment of history, a piece of knowledge that could transform their civilization if understood properly. Yet there was also a warning embedded in every pulse, every shimmer, every vibration. Respect the vastness of what you do not yet understand or face consequences. As days passed, the vessel's systems began to react more noticeably. Gravity shifted slightly in some corridors, lights flickered, and doors opened automatically as though anticipating the crew's movements. Malik theorized that the being was not just guiding them, it was testing their adaptability. Each trial required observation, caution, and ingenuity. Missteps were met not with punishment, but with resistance. Panels that would not open, corridors that rearranged themselves, subtle warnings embedded in the vessel's environment. One evening, Lena stood alone in the central chamber, watching the stasis pod. The being's form rippled more violently than usual, sending pulses through the floor, walls, and ceiling. She felt a presence, powerful and ancient, brushing against her mind. This time it was not curiosity, it was recognition. The being acknowledged her, recognized her awareness and patience. For the first time, she felt a spark of true understanding, a fragile bridge connecting human thought with an intelligence far beyond her comprehension. Malik joined her silently, observing the interaction. "It knows you are different," he said quietly. "You are listening, not demanding. That is why it responds to you more clearly." Lena nodded, feeling both humility and awe. Humanity had arrived at a crossroads. They could take knowledge for themselves, force the vessel to yield its secrets, or they could continue learning, respecting the patience and intelligence of what had waited for them for millennia. Every instinct screamed to push forward, to uncover everything immediately. But Lena understood that patience, observation, and humility were just as vital as curiosity. That night, as the crew rested, the vessel seemed to settle into a steady rhythm. The being inside the stasis pod no longer moved erratically. Its pulses became calm, almost meditative. Lena knew that the awakening had only just begun. Humanity had made contact with something eternal, and the lessons they would receive were only the beginning. By morning, the crew had established a routine. They documented every interaction, every vision, every pulse of energy from the being. The vessel responded to their patience, guiding them, teaching them, and occasionally testing them. Lena realized that they were no longer just explorers. They were participants in an experiment of time, intelligence, and understanding. Humanity was being measured, slowly, and the being inside the ancient vessel was the teacher. It was a lesson in patience, humility, and awareness. And humanity was just beginning to learn. The vessel seemed to grow more alive with each passing day. The corridors no longer merely hummed, they resonated. The walls shimmered faintly, and floors pulsed with subtle vibrations that synced with the heartbeat of the stasis pod's occupant. Lena Hart walked through these corridors with growing awareness of the intelligence around her. This was not just a ship. It was a mind, a consciousness that stretched across steel and circuitry, reaching out to understand those who had found it. Malik Ray led the scientific analysis, documenting every response, every shift in the being's form. "Captain," he said one morning, voice edged with excitement, "it's teaching us. I don't mean with words or signals, but with patterns, sequences, and reactions. We respond correctly, and the vessel opens new chambers. We respond incorrectly, and doors remain closed or corridors shift. It's training us. Lena nodded, her expression serious. It's testing us, Malik, but not for survival. It's testing our minds, our patience, our understanding. We have to continue carefully. The crew spent hours navigating the shifting halls, discovering new rooms each day. One chamber revealed towering crystalline structures, glowing faintly with alien energy. As they approached, the being inside the stasis pod pulsed, and the crystals reacted, bending light into shapes that conveyed emotion and intelligence. Lena stared in awe. It's communicating through art, she whispered. Not language, not words, art, patterns, and energy. It wants us to understand, not just observe. Over the next week, the crew began to anticipate the vessel's responses. They realized that each interaction required observation, ingenuity, and respect. Puzzles emerged in the corridors, rooms that only opened when they aligned lights in precise patterns, doors that responded to gentle pressure instead of force, gravity fields that shifted subtly to guide their movement. The vessel was alive, aware, and teaching them how to navigate not just space but thought itself. Malik often stayed at the stasis pod, focusing on the being. "Captain," he said one day, "I think it's a historian. It preserves knowledge of its creators, of civilizations, of everything this vessel has witnessed. It's offering us a choice. We can take the knowledge, or we can prove that we are capable of understanding it first." Lena considered this carefully. Humanity had a reputation for rushing, for taking what it wanted without respect for consequences. But this intelligence demanded patience. She realized that learning its lessons would require more than scientific analysis. It would require human adaptability, cooperation, and humility. "Then we proceed with respect," she said. "We learn, we adapt, and we observe. Nothing more." The being responded in subtle ways. Its form stretched, contracted, and rippled, interacting with the vessel's systems to create experiences rather than data. One room filled with holographic projections of distant worlds. Lena and Malik could see alien landscapes, floating cities, and creatures interacting in ways that defied human understanding. It was a civilization that had transcended conventional life, moving through energy and consciousness rather than flesh and bone. As they watched, Lena felt a connection. She did not speak aloud, yet the visions seemed to reach her mind directly, showing her not just what these beings had built, but how they had thought, how they had approached knowledge, life, and understanding. It was not just history, it was philosophy, a window into a civilization that had mastered existence in ways humanity could barely imagine. The crew took careful notes, documenting every projection, every interaction, every response from the being. The vessel itself seemed to respond to their diligence, opening new pathways and revealing chambers previously hidden. Some rooms were filled with technology that defied explanation: floating energy cores, devices that manipulated light and gravity, and systems that seemed self-aware. Lena realized that each new discovery was not just a test of intelligence. It was a lesson in responsibility. One afternoon, the vessel reacted unexpectedly. The stasis pod pulsed violently, and a corridor shifted suddenly, separating Lena and Malik from the rest of the crew. Gravity fluctuated, lights dimmed, and a low hum filled the air. Lena felt a sudden pressure in her chest, a mental push that seemed to say, "Observe, learn, adapt." Malik looked around, fear and excitement in his eyes. "It's testing us. This is another challenge. We have to think carefully. There is no trial by force here, only understanding." Together they studied the corridor. Panels on the walls displayed faint symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves based on their attention. Lena realized that the corridor was a puzzle, a sequence to be understood rather than forced. She traced patterns with her hands, following the subtle pulses of light. Malik joined in, adjusting sequences and observing responses. Slowly, the corridor realigned, light stabilizing, gravity normalizing. The vessel responded immediately. A door opened, revealing a chamber filled with more advanced technology, including a console that seemed to react to thought rather than touch. Lena placed her hand near the surface, and the console pulsed in response, creating holographic projections of star systems, energy flows, and alien symbols. The being inside the pod rippled in delight, or at least Lena felt the vibration as a form of acknowledgement. For the first time, the crew realized that the vessel was not just alive, it was interactive, teaching humanity to think, not just to see. Each challenge, each shift in corridors and systems, was a lesson in observation, patience, and understanding. The being had survived millennia because it had mastered knowledge in this way, and it now sought to extend that lesson to those who had discovered it. Days turned into weeks. The crew grew accustomed to the rhythms of the vessel, learning to anticipate changes, to read subtle cues in light, vibration, and form. Communication with the being improved. It began to respond more clearly, showing images, sequences, and concepts that challenged the crew's understanding. Lena realized that humanity was growing in ways that had nothing to do with technology. They were growing in perception, awareness, and insight. One evening, Malik and Lena discovered a chamber filled with crystalline arrays. The crystals reacted to their presence, bending light into patterns that created new images in the air, maps of star systems, diagrams of energy flows, and symbols that seemed to convey philosophy as much as science. Lena felt her mind opening, understanding that the being was teaching them about the universe itself, how energy, life, and consciousness intertwined. "It's showing us how civilizations rise and fall," Malik said softly. "Not through destruction, but through knowledge and understanding. It is preserving lessons from the past and offering them to us." Lena nodded. "We have to be careful. Knowledge this vast can be dangerous if misused, but if we approach it correctly, we could change humanity's future forever." The vessel responded that night. Gravity shifted subtly, lights pulsed, and the stasis pod's form rippled as though acknowledging her words. Lena felt the being's awareness brushing against her consciousness again. This time it was not curiosity, it was trust, fragile and measured. Humanity had passed initial tests of observation and patience. Now the vessel and its occupant were beginning to teach more directly, revealing fragments of knowledge that had been preserved for millennia. Over the next days, the crew explored deeper chambers, each revealing more advanced systems. Some were libraries of knowledge encoded in light and energy, while others were workshops filled with devices that manipulated matter, energy, and gravity. The being guided them subtly, allowing exploration but never forcing comprehension. Lena realized that the lessons were not just about science, they were about responsibility, awareness, and cooperation. The crew faced challenges as well. Some chambers were traps, designed to test understanding and patience. Panels would shift unexpectedly, corridors would realign, and gravity would fluctuate. Mistakes were met with resistance, not punishment, teaching the crew to adapt, observe, and cooperate. Each success unlocked new knowledge, creating a cycle of learning and growth. One afternoon, Lena and Malik stood before a massive console that displayed a holographic projection of a distant galaxy. The being inside the stasis pod pulsed, sending energy through the vessel that caused the projection to shift and respond. Lena reached out with her mind, trying to interpret the patterns while Malik adjusted sequences on the console. Slowly, the galaxy's projection aligned, revealing star systems, energy flows, and signals that hinted at civilizations beyond human knowledge. "It's showing us the universe as it is," Malik whispered. "Not just stars and planets, but life, energy, and consciousness. Entire civilizations, their rise and fall, all preserved here." Lena felt awe and humility. Humanity had discovered knowledge far beyond its current understanding, preserved for millennia, and offered to them through patience, observation, and respect. The vessel was not a tool, it was a teacher, and humanity was its student. As night fell, Lena returned to the stasis pod alone. The being's form rippled gently, responding to her presence. She did not speak aloud. Instead, she focused on understanding, on connecting, on learning. The vessel responded, pulsing in harmony with her awareness. For the first time, Lena felt a true connection, a bridge between human thought and an intelligence that had survived eons. Malik joined her silently. "Captain," he said, "it recognizes us now. It trusts us enough to reveal knowledge directly. We are no longer observers. We are participants." Lena nodded, feeling both awe and responsibility. Humanity had been chosen to witness, to learn, and to carry forward knowledge older than any civilization alive today. But with that knowledge came responsibility. Misuse could bring disaster. Respect and understanding were their only paths forward. The vessel pulsed gently, the stasis pod glowing softly. Lena understood that the lessons were far from over. The being had begun to reveal its secrets, but the depth of its knowledge spanned millennia. Humanity had entered a school of thought, consciousness, and energy far beyond their current understanding. The lessons would continue, testing their patience, perception, and adaptability. By morning, the crew had established a new routine. They interacted with the being, explored new chambers, and documented every fragment of knowledge. Each day, they grew not just in understanding, but in wisdom. Humanity was learning to think in ways it never had before, guided by an intelligence that had survived eons. And yet, Lena knew that the greatest lessons were still ahead. The vessel had awakened. The being had awakened. And humanity was beginning to understand the responsibility of knowledge, the patience of observation, and the strength of cooperation. The journey was far from over. The vessel's secrets were vast, and the lessons it offered would challenge every assumption humanity had ever held. Humanity had found an ancient intelligence, a living vessel, and a teacher older than the stars. The being had chosen them, and now, under its watchful presence, they would learn not just science, but understanding, patience, and wisdom. The awakening had begun. The vessel was alive, and it knew the crew of the Endeavor as more than mere explorers. Every corridor pulsed in gentle rhythm, every light flickered in time with the being inside the stasis pod, and every vibration carried a subtle sense of purpose. Lena Hart walked through the halls, feeling not fear, but awe. Humanity had entered a chamber of history, of consciousness, and of wisdom that no human mind had ever fully grasped. Yet now, after weeks of careful study, cautious exploration, and delicate interaction, they were ready to face the next stage of understanding. The being pulsed brightly in its chamber, its translucent form stretching and flowing as though celebrating recognition. Lena stood before it, sensing awareness brushing against her mind. Not words, not commands, but presence, guidance, and patience. Malik Ray joined her, carrying a console displaying newly revealed star maps and energy flows. The being had unlocked new systems, allowing them access to knowledge previously hidden. "It's time," Malik whispered, almost reverently. "I think it's ready to share its full knowledge with us. But we have to remain focused. This isn't just data, it's responsibility." The stasis pod rippled, and the vessel responded as if acknowledging his words. Doors opened to new chambers, and pathways appeared that had been invisible before. Lena led the crew carefully, stepping into rooms filled with devices, consoles, and holographic projections unlike anything humanity had seen. Entire star systems rotated in mid-air. Energy flows intertwined with light, and projections of civilizations appeared in motion, showing rise and fall, creation and decay. Lena felt her mind expand. The being was showing them more than science. It was showing them philosophy, history, and the consequences of knowledge. Humanity was witnessing patterns of civilizations spanning countless light years, learning not just how to survive, but how to thrive, adapt, and evolve with awareness. The crew spent days deciphering and interacting with these projections. The being guided them subtly, sending pulses of energy through the vessel that triggered understanding, insight, and sometimes vision. Lena and Malik realized that this was the ultimate lesson, not to take knowledge blindly, but to learn how to interpret, integrate, and apply it wisely. One morning, Lena found herself in a chamber unlike any other. The walls were smooth, reflective, and filled with faint energy pulses. At the center floated a crystalline structure, rotating slowly. The stasis pod's occupant pulsed in harmony with it. As she approached, the crystal responded, projecting images of distant galaxies, energy networks, and civilizations interacting across space. Lena could feel the intelligence of the being guiding her understanding, teaching her to see the universe as a living, interconnected system. Malik joined her, watching silently. "Captain," he said, voice filled with awe, "this is more than knowledge, it's wisdom. It's how civilizations survive, how they evolve, how they learn to coexist with the universe rather than dominate it." Lena nodded, realizing the gravity of what they had discovered. Humanity had always sought power, conquest, and exploration. Yet here was a consciousness that had endured millennia, not through dominance, but through understanding, patience, and preservation. The lessons offered were not just tools, they were philosophy, ethics, and strategy for survival and growth across the stars. The vessel pulsed more brightly as if responding to their realization. Holographic projections shifted, displaying sequences of energy flows and star movements, showing patterns that spanned entire galaxies. Lena understood that the being was demonstrating the interconnectedness of life, energy, and thought. Every action, every decision, every civilization was part of a larger pattern, and understanding those patterns was the key to survival and progress. Over the next week, the crew explored more chambers, each revealing new aspects of the being's knowledge. Some rooms contained advanced energy systems, showing methods for harnessing power sustainably. Others contained biological projections, demonstrating evolution, adaptation, and resilience in countless forms of life. Lena realized that the being had preserved not just information, but the wisdom of countless species, civilizations, and technologies. One evening, Lena stood before the stasis pod alone, feeling the full presence of the being. She did not speak, did not move hastily. Instead, she opened her mind, letting awareness flow between them. The vessel pulsed in response, the walls shimmering, lights flickering, and energy flowing like liquid light through the corridors. She felt visions, images, and patterns rushing into her consciousness, understanding, not just data, flowing directly into her mind. She saw civilizations making choices, learning from mistakes, and evolving through cooperation, creativity, and awareness. She saw worlds that had failed because they sought power over understanding. And she saw how knowledge, when applied with patience and wisdom, could elevate life itself. Lena understood that humanity had been tested, and now they were being offered the chance to carry forward lessons older than their species. Malik joined her quietly, sensing the shift. "Captain," he said softly, "it's showing us the full legacy. Not just science, not just technology, but the responsibility of knowledge. We can change humanity's path if we apply this correctly." Lena felt the weight of the moment. The being had not only survived millennia, it had preserved lessons that could shape entire civilizations. The question now was whether humanity could absorb these lessons, respect them, and use them to grow rather than destroy. She nodded to Malik. "Then we take it carefully. We learn, we adapt, and we teach others what we understand. That is the legacy." The vessel seemed to respond, pulsing in steady rhythm. The stasis pod rippled gently, sending waves of energy through the ship. Lena could feel the being's presence, calm and measured, yet powerful. It was not demanding obedience, it was offering knowledge and guidance, trusting humanity to use it wisely. Over the following days, the crew worked tirelessly. They documented systems, interacted with holographic projections, and applied lessons in real time. They discovered methods of energy generation, advanced navigation, biological adaptation, and even communication across vast distances without conventional technology. Each discovery carried ethical implications, choices about how to use knowledge responsibly, how to avoid conflict, and how to preserve life across civilizations. One chamber revealed a network of interconnected devices, each projecting sequences of light and energy. Lena and Malik realized that these devices were designed to teach understanding through experience, not explanation. The being guided them through simulations of interstellar scenarios, how civilizations might respond to resource scarcity, how alliances could form, and how cooperation could stabilize or destabilize worlds. Each scenario was a test, a lesson, and a revelation all at once. The crew learned not just to survive, but to think beyond their immediate concerns. They began to understand patterns of growth, adaptation, and wisdom that spanned galaxies. Humanity's own potential felt small in comparison, yet immense in opportunity. Lena realized that this vessel was not just a relic. It was a classroom, a mentor, and a bridge to a future where humanity could rise beyond its current limitations. One night, Lena stood alone on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The vessel pulsed gently around her, and the being's presence resonated through the corridors. She felt a profound connection, not just to the ship, not just to the being, but to the vast universe itself. Humanity had discovered not just knowledge, but responsibility, awareness, and the potential to shape its destiny. Malik joined her silently. "Captain, do you realize what this means?" he asked softly. "We are the first humans to truly understand this intelligence. It's entrusting us with its legacy. If we apply it wisely, humanity could become something greater than we ever imagined." Lena nodded, feeling both awe and humility. "We have to be careful," she said. "Knowledge this vast can be dangerous if misused. But if we respect it, learn from it, and apply it wisely, we can change everything." The being inside the stasis pod pulsed one final time, a soft, steady glow. Its form shimmered, spreading energy throughout the vessel. Lena understood that it had shared its full legacy. The lessons, the knowledge, the wisdom. It was now theirs to carry, interpret, and apply. The vessel had served its purpose. The being had completed its mission. In the following days, the crew prepared to leave. The Endeavor had recorded everything, learned everything it could, and humanity was forever changed. The vessel itself seemed to pulse with satisfaction, corridors stabilizing, systems quieting, and the stasis pod resting in calm energy. Lena felt a sense of completion, not just for the mission, but for the centuries of waiting that had led to this moment. As the shuttle detached and the Endeavor moved away from the vessel, Lena looked back. The ship was silent, still, but she could feel the lingering presence of the being, a reminder that knowledge, wisdom, and responsibility were eternal. Humanity had discovered a teacher, a historian, and a guide older than the stars themselves. And now it was up to them to carry forward that legacy. Back aboard the Endeavour, the crew gathered in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but Lena's thoughts were with the lessons they had learned. Humanity was no longer the same species that had arrived in the Orion expanse. They had been tested, they had been taught, and they had risen to meet the challenge. Malik turned to her, a quiet smile on his face. "We are ready," he said. "Not just for exploration, but for what comes next. We can take these lessons, share them, and help humanity grow." Lena nodded. "Yes, humanity will carry this knowledge forward. We will respect it, apply it wisely, and ensure that the mistakes of the past are not repeated. The legacy is ours to uphold." As the Endeavour moved further into the depths of space, Lena looked out at the stars, feeling hope, determination, and awe. Humanity had faced the unknown, discovered an intelligence older than any living being, and emerged wiser, stronger, and more united. The ancient vessel, once a tomb, had become a beacon, and the being inside had ensured that humanity's journey was no longer just about survival. It was about understanding, growth, and the infinite potential of life itself. The vessel faded from view, but its lessons remained, etched into the minds and hearts of those who had discovered it. Humanity's first encounter with the ancient intelligence of the Orion expanse was complete, but the journey it inspired was only beginning. The stars stretched endlessly before them, filled with opportunities, mysteries, and challenges, and humanity, now forever changed, was ready to meet them all. The being's mission was complete. Humanity's mission had just begun.